Hey everyone, and welcome back to Scotty's Garage for more lockdown fun with the Rustoleum wagon. That's right, the wagon is back here in the shed while the rest of the world goes insane. But let's not dwell on what's happening out there, let's dwell on what we need to do in here. And we want to bring this thing closer to fruition so we can go cruising with our mates when everything else settles down. That's the dream. But last episode we stripped back that rear quarter, the driver's side rear quarter, and found it had been hammered. It is in a terrible state of affairs. It is not looking very good at all. And a few people give me some hints on how to maybe make that right. Some even said, why don't you just bog it back up again? I'm like, no, I am not rebogging that. Any bog that goes in there will be minimal. I'm telling you that now. So, we don't want to bog it. We want to beat it out, but I'm not sure I have the skill set or the patience to make that happen. I could replace it though. And we do have someone who has a pair of rear quarters, and we're talking to them right now. Maybe we can score a couple of rear quarters for this thing. If that happens, it will be amazing, but more on that later. So let's move on to some other parts of the car, like the chassis rail, which needs some rust repair in that. It's only a little rust spot, but it's near the steering box, so we need to cut that out, replate it. So I figure let's pull some parts off this thing, get to that spot, cut it out. We've got some Ryobi tools, we've got a welder here from Hare and Forbes, we've got a heap of Rustoleum. Let's make this thing happen right now. Alright, so I've got the guard off, the wheel off, the steering box is out of the way. So let's poke the GoPro under there and show you what we're looking at. Okay, so as you can see, we've got a slight rust hole here. Well, pretty good rust hole. So what I'm going to do is cut this entire section out and then slightly up and around. And I have a pre-bent piece of metal, nice heavy gauge metal, to weld in there as well. What I might do also is pop this torsion bar out. It's in the road a bit. Give us more room to work. It's going to be painful enough without having to dodge around that bloody thing. So, alright, let's pop the torsion bar out and get to it. Alrighty. Slide that out of the way. Alrighty. Well, that gives us plenty of room to work. Right, well, I've hit the chassis rail with the stripper disc, and the problem's probably a little bit bigger than I first thought. At first it was just a little rust hole in the bottom of the rail. Yeah, we cut out the metal, replace it, it's all good. But there's a bit of a crack running up the chassis rail as well, which isn't uncommon because the steering box isn't really meant to be bolted to the chassis rail, these things. These are based off the American A-body Mopar, like your Dodge Dart and that sort of stuff. Now, in that format, the steering box is on the other side of the engine bay and it's bolted to the K-member, not to the chassis rail. But Australian engineers decided to bolt it straight to the rail when they did it for the Australian roads. And yes, they put a couple crush tubes inside the rail and that sort of thing, but it really isn't enough to deal with, 50 years of a steering box pulling hard against it. It's really bad in the power steering models, actually. It's quite common for them to crack around the chassis rail. So anyway, this is not unknown territory for us. We're just going to cut out the old metal, weld in some new stuff, make it right. So it looks like the space we're working with is a little bit too tight for the angle grinders, just not enough room to work with. So it looks like it's time to break out the air tools. So we've got the die grinder in there, ground away all the bad metal and made ourselves a patch out of 3mm steel. So that's thicker than the chassis metal. We've pre-bent it in the Carnage workshop and then cut it to size here on location. So that is ready to go in. I won't say it's a precise fit, but it's a good fit. We'll be able to penetrate around the sides, give it some good strength, but that should be a good chunk of metal to weld in there. But before I do that, I'm going to treat the inside of the chassis rail with some rust converter. So we'll give that a pretty liberal coat. I'll go have some lunch and allow that to dry. Then we'll come back, weld our patch in. Right, well, we've cut out our rust, we've treated the area with rust converter. Now it's time to seal in the goodness with some fresh metal. All right, we'll burn that in with a MIG welder. Now some people may say this is the wrong way to go, that I should use like a full chassis sleeve or a new rail completely. Where am I going to find that? I don't know, but you know, there are ways and means of doing this. I've seen guys rebuild the rail from scratch with all fresh metal. Sure, we could do that, and it's going to take a long time. At the moment, I just want to get this thing up to a rego inspection. So this will fix it. It will do a solid job, and it'll be fine. Maybe down the track, we may want to put a rail on it or a sleeve or something like that, but I don't see that happening for another 10 or 20 years. So this will be solid. It'll be fine. I think it'll do the job.
Plug in.
That was the welder. I've been welding. It tripped it. And now we have our patch welded in. It started off pretty good, except we hit some thin patches in the side of the chassis rail, and I had to chase them with a welder. It all got a bit messy, but underneath looks perfect. Love the penetration and the travel with the thicker material. It worked really well. So, got to take the good with the bad. I've posted the raw welds so people can have a sook about them in the comment section, as people love to do. But that's all right. I'm going to clean them up now, make it all pretty. She's going to be sweet. Now that we've ground back the daggy welds and smoothed it all out, it's time for some Rustoleum. We're going to start with some prep wash to clean up the surface, then coat it in some super etch primer before finishing it off with some subframe black. So there we have it, chassis repair, done and dusted. So now I've just got to put it back together, get it down on its wheels and move on to the next part, which I reckon, let's strip the paint off the roof.